What's your dream university?
Stanford,
Oxford, LSE,
McGill,
Cambridge. What about you?
AUS。
迈向世界名校的阶梯，首选辅仁国际学校。
Hi, everybody. Following the last 2 weeks of excellent progress in our Furen International School Young Talent Top University Coaching Program, we covered during the process, we have covered the application procedure, what makes a strong candidate to the top universities, as well as personal statement. Today, we are moving to the section of reference letter. What makes great reference letters and what would be expected from those who will be the referees for our candidate. Generally speaking, a reference letter consists of following components. So it should have sections that will introduce your relationship with the candidate. For instance, you are the principal of an international school like our Furen school. What type of school? Very brief background of like Furen is a renowned international school located in Singapore, which has been successful in preparing the students for A-level. So then it should have the assessment of the candidate's academic abilities through the exam results, through your assessment of his or her benchmarked position in terms of their academic capabilities, and then the applicant's ability for the course they are applying to, what their interest and passion and the training they have received, relate them to the field of the university choice. And then any other information, like in terms of their personality, extracurricular, community services, which will strengthen their application. And then in the following, let's take a look of some examples, which we will share the do's and the don'ts of good reference.
And before we just go into the example of it, you may be thinking about, is there a one way of writing letter? Will that be boring? And will the letter be the same as the personal statement? So hold these thoughts and let's go into this example.
Wow, what an example. Okay, if we look at this reference letter, first of all, it has got a page of a lot of words, which consists of 5 paragraphs. Now, if we take a look at paragraph 1, so this teacher has put obvious sense of enthusiasm, but words like great pleasure and unshakable responsibility to recommend to you this Miss Tian sounds a bit like overweighted, like too much information which are a bit irrelevant. So a better version would be, I'm a doctor of political science, or I'm just associate professor with, let's say, Miss Tian's school. One name can say that. And then I have been teaching her, or I came to know her over the last, say, 2 to 3 years while teaching them Western political and ideological history period. And then I strongly recommend her to your esteemed Department of XXX for a degree in Oxford, Cambridge, or LSE.
Yeah, the good point about this, you can see the rest of the paragraphs that there was a mention about their academic performance. And not just because they score A's, but what does it mean to the kid, to the students? What have he demonstrated in terms of competencies? There's also mention about the curriculum on the 3rd paragraph. And on the 4th paragraph, basically says that, yep, joining these established schools in the future what kind of development does it provide to students. So these are good practices there. Okay, let's quickly go to example 2, and you will realize that it's very clean. Does it mean that it's insufficient? Okay, let's dive into this.
This one, yeah, the presentation, as Elliot was saying, quite neat. However, a strong reference, you must have, let's say, 4 parts. 4 parts meaning, your relationship, your let's say assessment of the academic capacity and aptitude of the student, and your assessment number 3, your assessment of their let's say holistic capability, such would sometimes include even crisis one outside the school or their social community services, to reflect the candidate as a strong, holistically well-developed person. And then usually part 4, your own prediction as in your confidence, your trust, your expectation of the prospects of this student's future with the applied institution. So take this one as an example. Like the second part, like the academic reflection and evaluation, should be the most heavily weighted of all the 4 parts. And this one comes across like quite weak as in the information reflected there doesn't really give us a strong idea or strong, clear, quick idea of how would this candidate compare to his or her peers in the field of, say, the chosen subject. Okay. But he may have been really lucky because he had great results and a great personal statement, especially when you apply to the US Ivy League schools. Your PS counts as much as your grade. So if they did very well in those fields, they could also get in. But in terms of the reference, like a strong reference evaluation, this one could be better.
So to sum up the 2 examples, let's look at some of the key pointers for us today. 1, the letter is not about you, it's about the 2, evidence-based is important, right? And what learning does this person go through? Pick up from that experience. Remember to contextualize, especially if you know that the students are all applying to the same faculty. So if it's into economics, then what these students has been performing can drive through the next performance in field of study. And of course, always be honest, but be tactful. Like in the earlier example, you might say is that, okay, the student is good, a writer, but, right? Once you use the but, this is where the text is not there, right? So focus on the strength, and if it's something that is not strong, turn that language into a development language for the student. Right? Important, you're applying to universities, so please do your grammatical checks. If it's UK, use UK English. If US, use all your and think of recommendation as opportunity to showcase what the result doesn't, you can't see from the results, you can only see through an experience with the students. So therefore it's important that you space out the inner being of students and attention.
So in the following, we have carefully selected this video clip, which less than 3 minutes, and 3 tutors, admission selectors, basically from Oxford, from different disciplines. They will highlight to us what are the key points they would be looking for in strong reference. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teacher reference are quite tricky because we don't want to have people effectively let down just because there isn't a good teacher available to write a good reference for them. And so we pay attention to them when we look at them, but often it's not going to be the critical decider. Often it's more important that the teacher actually express some difficulties or hardships that the students overcome that makes their result even more impressive, rather than just this sort of generic positive statements about how bright they are or that they're the smartest kid in the school. That doesn't really tell us anything specific about the student.
The teacher's reference is something that's a very useful cross-check as part of the whole UCAS application form, because the form, because it's got the personal statement, the results, any contextual information and the teacher's reference, it's something that we're really able to read together as a whole. And the place that the teacher's reference plays in that, it can be particularly in giving us a sense of the trajectory of the individual candidate. If there's somebody perhaps who, if you look at their GCSE results, are good but not necessarily superb, but they might be somebody who's been on an upward trajectory, and now that they're doing their sixth form studies, they're really excelling. So that's a very useful narrative to have in the teacher's reference. Also, any specific circumstances in relation to the teaching or in relation to the school. Occasionally we've had helpful comments if there's been a lot of discontinuity, for instance, or disruption in someone's schooling, and that can help give us useful context for understanding the raw data, if you like, that results give us about them.
Most references look the same from teachers. They tend to have a statement at the top that talks about the type of school. Now that is interesting. It's useful to know what sort of school the student is coming from to give us some context. But sometimes teachers just say they are a talented chemist, they are an excellent mathematician. All of that's wonderful, but really what we're looking for is extenuating circumstances. If somebody's done badly in a GCSE, but it was explained, that's very helpful. It gives us any extenuating circumstances that we need to take into account.